Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano. Today's the 7th of March, 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So apologies for yesterday's episode, or a lack of episode, or rug fuel, if you will. And just a forewarning, there might be another rug fuel or an episode missed tomorrow, being Friday. But if I do miss tomorrow's episode, I will make up for it by doing an episode on Saturday. So there will only be one technically missed episode this week. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to try and do it tomorrow. It's actually preferable for me to do it tomorrow, but it just depends on how timelines line up there. If not, I'll do it on Saturday. But yeah, apologies for missing yesterday there. But anyway, there's a bunch of stuff to get through here. First off is more stuff around the ETH ETF. I know you guys are probably sick of hearing about this at this point, and of course, if you are, there are timestamps on the videos. You can skip ahead if you don't want to listen to me ramble on about it. But I think it is critically important, not just because obviously we want the ETH ETF to get approved, but also because the SEC's power within crypto, or their hold over crypto, or what little, I guess, hold they think they have, the more that we diminish that, the better it is for all of crypto. It's not just about Ethereum, it's not just about ETH as an asset, it's about all of crypto. Because as we know, the SEC is extremely hostile towards crypto. Now, of course, they can't really do any damage to truly decentralized protocols in the sense that, for example, if they went after the Uniswap Labs team and like properly sued them and say, hey, you're running like an unregistered kind of security exchange, like they've done with, unregistered trading venue of unregistered securities, like they've done with Coinbase, it wouldn't affect Uniswap, the protocol, right? Because Uniswap, the protocol, is actually decentralized. But the point is that the SEC's power needs to be put in check. Now, if Congress doesn't want to put it in check in the US or keep it in check, the courts have to. But the problem with that is that the courts are very, very expensive. Grayscale and Ripple, to win their cases, spent a lot of money, and this is money that a lot of smaller teams, or pretty much all the smaller teams, do not have. And it's not just the money aspect to it, it's also the mental load. Like if you're a startup, right, and you're trying to build your new fancy crypto project, and then the SEC comes after you and says, you're either going to settle with us and you're going to pay a fine and then you're going to stop what you're doing, or you're going to fight us in court and it's going to cost you years worth of, I guess, like mental anguish. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and that's all time and money that you can't use on your project. So what path do you think these smaller teams are going to take? And that obviously kills innovation. That kills, a lot of money coming into the space, because the US is still that center of money for crypto, at least for the foreseeable future. So getting the ETH ETF approved would go a very long way of weakening the SEC's case against crypto assets generally and against labeling them as securities. And that's exactly what we want here. But the reason why I'm bringing it up today is because Nate Geraci here put out another tweet a couple of days ago, I think, where he basically said the SEC is seeking public comments on various spot ETH ETF filings, and it really comes down to this: should approval of spot BTC ETFs equal an approval of spot ETH ETFs? Given the SEC allowed ETH futures ETFs, Nate thinks yes, but clearly key differences between BTC and ETH, which the SEC is circling in on here, and there's a little paragraph here that you can read. But basically, the key differences are, I think, proof of work versus proof of stake, right? And also the fact that Ethereum has a defined roadmap and has regular network upgrades. Now, I guess like when it comes to proof of work versus proof of stake, there are a lot of differences between the two, but I don't think that really matters for ETH getting a ETF. I don't really see how that would be relevant there. When it comes to Ethereum having a roadmap as opposed to something like Bitcoin, I think, yeah, I mean, that can be relevant if the answer is that Ethereum is centralized around the people working on the roadmap, which it obviously is not, right? There are 160 odd core devs and researchers, but they're just the ones who propose upgrades and build the upgrades. They're not the ones who actually, there is overlap between them and people who run the full nodes. Of course, a lot of them run full nodes, but they are one voice among many within the ecosystem, right? There are many, many different voices, many, many different stakeholders which make up Ethereum, and Ethereum is truly decentralized because of that. So I think that, as I said, the proof of work versus proof of stake distinction probably doesn't matter when it comes to the ETF stuff. I don't see why it would. And I know that there's obviously like all these reasons people can come up with, but really anytime I see people kind of trying to come up with reasons why the ETH ETF shouldn't be approved, it's that same old FUD that we hear from Bitcoin maxis all the time. Like it's just such old FUD that I can't believe people are still spouting. But when it comes to the SEC, they're not gonna, they're not gonna kind of take you just giving them dot points of like why you think proof of stake is bad or why you think Ethereum is centralized. Like, you actually have to give detailed examples and evidence as to why you think these things. Because typically on Twitter, what you'll see is basically dot points of people's takes on this. And they'll say, Ethereum is centralized because there is a small group of developers that make changes. And it's like, okay, that's a statement with literally no supporting evidence. What's your supporting evidence to that statement? Like, what actually makes it true? And then people will continue and they'll say, oh, Vitalik's in control and Joe Lubin is in control. And then it's like, okay, how are they in control? Like, what specifically tell us what they're in control of, how they can actually exert control over the network. And then from then it just gets lost in conspiracy theories because, for one, Joe Lubin is not and has never been a core dev. He has funded core developers as part of consensus, but he has never been a core dev. He has never really had any control over Ethereum, really. I mean, I would argue that, like, even in the earliest days, his saying things was very, very minimal, and he purposely did that, I think, as well, in the early days. And then when it comes to Vitalik, I mean, obviously in the earlier days, he had more influence than he does today. But today, he really is just another researcher in the sea of other researchers. Not to discredit his work, not to obviously make it sound like he doesn't do anything. But the thing is that if Vitalik was to come out with an EIP and said, hey, I want to change the network to do such and such, he has to go through the entire Ethereum governance process, the entire EIP process, has to get it through that, has to get it included in an upgrade, and then has to convince everyone to actually want this thing for such and such reason. And one of the EIPs that Vitalik was a co-author on was EIP 1559. And obviously that is one of the most popular EIPs, or the most popular EIP in Ethereum's history. It, burns the ETH, brought a lot of kind of nice upgrades to the Ethereum fee network, or fee mechanism, I should say. But that still took 2.5 years to get into the network. And you could even go back further to when Vitalik first proposed this change, which I believe was as early as 2017. And it went live 2021, right? August 2021. So when you look at it like that, 3-4 years worth of research and development to get something in that Vitalik wanted to get in. So there is literally no, evidence to support these arguments. And if you want to put these arguments forward and you want the SEC to actually rule based on these arguments, there has to be evidence, right? Because they can't just be statements. Like, it's like these people have never actually, looked at a court case, for example. Like, you can't just walk into a court case and be like, that person murdered that person, and then the judge be like, oh, well, you're right. That makes total sense. Guilty, going to jail for 20 years. That's not how it works. Like, you can't just make a statement and then expect that statement to be true and people to believe it to be true. That is more reserved for things like cults. And I guess, like, to an extent, the Bitcoin maxis and the laser eyes are a cult, right? And that's why they repeat it and they kind of believe it without any need for supporting evidence here. So that's a big part of it. And that's what the SEC is going to go back and forth with. But I guess, like, my kind of take on this is that I already think that the ETH ETFs are getting approved. Like, it's already a lock. This is all just a formality. This is all just back and forth. In my mind, there are no material differences between BTC and ETH when it comes to the ETFs. They already approved ETH futures ETFs. Obviously, Grayscale won their court case, forcing the SEC to basically approve the BTC ETFs because they already approved the futures ones. And the funny thing is that the futures ETFs for ETH weren't approved like a long time ago. They were approved very recently. It was in October. I think it was October 1st or something like that. Very early October where those were approved. And if you remember, Grayscale won their case against the SEC in October as well. So it's not like these things were approved years ago when the SEC had a different kind of take on crypto. No, it was very recent. So it kind of begs the question of, like, okay, why did they approve those things if that actually makes it basically impossible for them to deny a spot ETF? And I think it's maybe because of two reasons. One, they actually never plan to deny the spot ETFs, or two, which is maybe the more likely thing, is that they actually expected to win against Grayscale in their case here, and they didn't expect the judge to pass on that kind of that judgment and basically give Grayscale the win. So yeah, there's that aspect to it. But then there's also the other aspect to it about how the SEC and the CFTC have been fighting over jurisdiction when it comes to crypto assets, specifically ETH and BTC. The CFTC believes that ETH and BTC are commodities. The SEC believes that ETH is a security, right? Or has traditionally believed that it's a security. If you pay attention to their language, they haven't actually called ETH a security in a long time, or said it's a security in a long time. And they also didn't include ETH in any of their lawsuits against Coinbase, Binance, and Kraken, labeling other assets as securities, right? And then it came out today that the CFTC chair said that ETH and BTC are commodities, but things will get tricky if the SEC says otherwise. And it actually would, because it would mean if the SEC wanted to go after ETH and say it was a security, essentially what they would be doing is admitting that they approved futures contracts for an unregistered security, right? Because they approved the futures ETF for an unregistered security. So they would be admitting that they fucked up there. Then they would also be admitting that they let the CME futures market for ETH run for years now. I think it's over 2 years at least now. right? And let that run. And then what would happen is that they'd open themselves up to a massive lawsuit from many different players on this. The judge would look at the law, would look at the what's happened in the past, look at the precedent here, and basically more than likely rule in favor of these of the companies bringing the lawsuits against the SEC, and the SEC would once again have egg on their face, would once again lose big, and the headlines will not be good. And I've said this before, but this is a critical election year for Democrats, and Gary Gensler is a Democrat appointee, obviously. So, like, they can't afford to be getting bad headlines here. I know some people disagree with this, and some people think that people don't care enough about crypto to be a single issue voter on crypto. I think there is a lot of people out there, especially when the market's going up, guys. So, in saying that, I put out another tweet today where I said, the path of least resistance for the SEC is just to approve these ETH ETFs. If they deny them, it's going to cause a world of hurt for them. If they approve them, right, there's no world of hurt for them, really. I mean, maybe for Gensler, maybe Elizabeth Warren doesn't like that Gensler approves them. I don't know. Like, I don't know when it comes to that stuff, the backroom stuff that they do. Who knows what happens there? But for the SEC as an organization, it is much more in their interest to approve these things, especially during a bull market, because they get all the goodwill, they don't have to have any headaches, and don't have to deal with any lawsuits, and they just cement the fact that BTC and ETH are the commodities, and then they can probably even use that to go after other assets. They can basically say, okay, well, we'll leave BTC and ETH as commodities because that makes sense for such and such reasons, but they're still going to go after other things for being securities, right? Maybe they think that it could help them. I said before that I don't think that would help them. I think it's actually going to weaken their case, but maybe they use that in a roundabout way. We all know the SEC has not been very logical over the past year or so, especially there. But anyway, that's enough on the ETF stuff. I just figured I'd give a bit of my thoughts around that because, like, people are still doubting it, and I understand why people are doubting it, doubting the ETH ETFs getting approved by May 23rd. I get it. And look, there's not 100% lock, right? I said that I think they're going to get approved. I'm staking my reputation based on that. Obviously, I'm ultra long on ETH, so I'm betting on that in a roundabout way as well. But it doesn't mean that I'm right. I could be completely wrong. They could deny it just to do it, and they could just deal with all the headaches. They won't care about that because there are smart people saying that the chances of the ETH ETF getting approved are quite small here. I'm not talking about people who call ETH small potatoes. I'm talking about people like Jake Chavinsky, who's a lawyer within the crypto space, who's been around for a long time. I respect his opinion on things, but at the same time, all of us are just guessing, right? And I'm trying to make an informed guess based on what I have seen and what I think is the path of least resistance here, but I could be completely wrong on this. So please do not trade based on this stuff. I know people are going to trade based on this stuff, and if you are, really you're just playing the speculative game, which is basically what all of trading and investing really boils down to. But I'm not here saying that, it's 100% getting approved. Believe me, there's no way it's getting denied. You should lever long on ETH. No, I'm not saying for you guys to do that. And really, I don't think ETH's value relies on an ETF getting approved. It's just like one value driver out of many. But I do firmly still believe, and I see no reason to not believe, that these are going to get approved by May 23rd. And just like what happened with the BTC ones, I kind of feel like they're going to wait. The SEC is going to wait until May 23rd to approve them. They're not going to do it any sooner, just to be that little bit spiteful there, which is kind of shitty, but as long as they get approved, that's all that matters in the end there. Right, moving on. So Dencun is around the corner. It's coming next week on the 13th of March. So very, very close now. Just a friendly reminder that I'll be doing a live stream with the ETH Staker and ETH Cat Herders crew. You can go to ETH Staker's Twitter page to find a link to that. I'll be on there with a bunch of great folks. I think it's going to be starting at midnight Australian Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what time that is for everyone else. I think that's like early morning US, depending on your coast that you're on. And then in Europe, it's like midday or something like that. But I'm sure you guys will see the timing there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, always an event whenever Ethereum has a network upgrade. But the reason I'm bringing it up today was because that there is a node readiness checker that Tim Byko has shared, or at least two different checkers here, at ethernet.io, which is tracking the execution layer node readiness, and app.metrica.co, which is tracking the consensus layer readiness. And I'll link both of these in the YouTube description below for you to check out. I don't think, Ethernet is working now. So you can actually see which nodes are ready for Dencun and which ones are not. I think I've showed these websites before, and you can see a bunch of different metrics around the nodes here as well. Just a friendly reminder on this front as well, if you are running a full Ethereum node, whether you've got validators attached to it or not, doesn't matter. You need to upgrade to Dencun. You need to upgrade your clients. I think all of the client releases are out at this point, so You can go find those at their respective GitHub repositories. If you're running something like a DApp node, their packages should be updated by now. Rocket Pool, I think, is updated or will be updated soon. I remember seeing something about that. And also, critical to remember, you need to upgrade MEV Boost as well. Do not forget to upgrade your MEV Boost if you are using it, which 95% of the network are. Because as I've said, if you don't upgrade and then you have a block proposal, you're going to miss that block proposal because it will not be on the correct network or will not be the correct version of the software there. So yeah, you need to update your execution layer client, consensus layer client, validator client, which comes with the consensus layer client anyway, and MEV Boost. But please make sure to update all of those. And if you want to track how it's all going, you can track it on these respective websites here. Now, I think Tim Byko posted some screenshots here as of 2 days ago. A lot of the network was already supporting. You can see here how it's kind of climbed up over time on the execution layer and the consensus layer side of things. But usually we see these percentages creep up over time, and as we get closer and closer, people sometimes look at it and like, oh, we're only at 50% with a week left. That doesn't really matter, guys. Upgrading these things doesn't take very long, especially like solo validators and stakers. It's very, very easy. There are many guides out there on how to upgrade. Rocket Pool is even easier, honestly. And then the big operations have their own kind of, I guess, like DevOps pipeline that they have to follow to upgrade. But I mean, they've all got it like down pat at this point. I mean, they have to do it as efficiently as possible. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about any of that. But yeah, Dencun is almost here, guys. Blobs are coming. I think there's been a lot of discussion around blob fee pricing as well. I mean, I discussed that this week as well. And I think I've discussed it for months, but I really showed it this week with regards to that new website that was posted by the Optimism team there, covering blobs and covering what the cost will be like. I do want to just reiterate something here, that any cost estimations that you see are just that. They're estimations, or even at best guesstimations. We will not know until Dencun goes live and has been live for maybe a couple of months what the kind of steady state fees are going to be on these L2s. And all of the L2s are different in how they handle fees. Some of them have heavier execution costs. Some of them have heavy data costs. If they have heavier data costs, they're probably going to benefit more from 4844 than the ones that have heavier execution costs, because of the fact that obviously blobs are for data, right? They're not for execution. So there are going to be different kind of cost reductions here across the board. So please do keep in mind that any estimations you see are just that. They're estimations. Don't take them as gospel. Don't look at them and be like, oh my God, the fees are going to get reduced by 50x or something like that. It's a case-by-case basis depending on the L2. And I should say depending on the L2 framework, because logically all of the OP stack chains should look similar to each other. All of the Arbitrum orbit chains should look similar to each other. All of the Polygon and CDK chains should look similar, right? All that kind of stuff there. But at the same time, it is a case-by-case basis on that front. Now, in terms of like what I'm expecting to see, I don't really know, honestly. Like, I think that over time, blobs got changed. I think I remember originally the original spec for blobs, the blobs were bigger in size and there were more blobs, I think. But then eventually the core devs decided that, hey, okay, let's start small and scale it up from there so that we don't obviously have any network stability issues. So I think originally I said that there was up to 100x decrease of fees, and that was a long time ago now, but that was when Dencun was spec'd that way. I think today, especially with I guess like the fact we have a lot more L2s now, so there's going to be a lot more demand for blobs. I think that we could expect across the board, on average, a 5 to 10x decrease here. Now, that's a substantial decrease, mind you. Like 5 to 10x. I mean, let's just do a 10x thing. If you're paying 10 cents today, which, I mean, I think it's higher than that, but just for the sake of math, if you're paying 10 cents today, you should logically be paying 1 cent tomorrow, right? So that is a substantial reduction in of itself there. But as I've said before, 4844 blobs are not static. They can be changed over time. They require a hard fork to change, but they can be increased in size. And they can also be there can also be more blobs added, and that's going to happen over time. And it's a very, very easy thing to do. So 4844 is the groundwork. That's why it's called proto dank sharding, right? It's the groundwork being laid to get us to full dank sharding, which is going to happen hopefully over the next couple of years. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. That roadmap's still pretty, I wouldn't say in flux, but like there's a lot of work to be done on that front there. All right, speaking of execution layer clients, Geth or Go Ethereum CPU usage has been cut almost in half. So you can see here that both Peter and Marius, who work on Geth, have tweeted about this. So if you are running Geth, which I think a lot of you probably still are, I know there's been a push to get people off Geth recently, obviously because of the client diversity stuff, but Geth is an amazing client, guys. It's very performant, very reliable, and it just gets better and better over time. So, and as I said before, as a solo staker, you using Geth is not that big of a deal. I think think that if you want to do your part for client diversity, you definitely can, in terms of like running minority clients, and maybe you have better experience with other clients. But when it comes to client diversity, it really comes down to the biggest players in terms of moving the needle, right? Like Coinbase and Lido and Binance and Kraken and all those, those other big players there. But really, I mean, Lido and Coinbase are the biggest players here, so that they make up like 50% of the network or something like that. So when you kind of look at it like that, then you kind of see that, okay, well, even if the solo stakers are like 5 to 7%, I think the last estimations were, you do make a difference, but at the same time, it's not a big deal if you run Geth, especially if you're having a good experience with it, you have no reason to change, then stay with it. Like, you shouldn't be forced to switch off here. But it's just great to see that there are some substantial improvements being made to Geth, which is the oldest Ethereum client by far. I mean, it's been around since day one. It's like been around since 2015, guys, mid-2015 when Ethereum launched. Even earlier than that, if you count the test nets, right? So the fact that they're still able to improve it this much by cutting CPU usage in half is a crazy achievement. So kudos to the Geth team for doing this. And if you're running Geth, you can now upgrade to, I think, an unstable and stable version of this, which, the unstable version, which is not like the full release yet, has this kind of change here. But you can upgrade to that if you want. I mean, I probably wouldn't suggest it for an in production environment, because there might be bugs and things like that. But yeah, anyway, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Alright, so Terrence has a new post on L1 censorship and inclusion lists. He says here, in this post, I outline why I believe addressing censorship in relayers and builders is more pressing, and a natural solution is to give validators some degree of freedom to include their own transactions, i.e. an inclusion list. So yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But inclusion lists, as you guys know, are definitely something that a lot of the core devs and researchers want to get into the Petra upgrade. So they want this EIP to go to be included as part of Petra, which should ship probably in Q1 next year at this rate. Here, and I'm definitely in favor of this as well, as long as the design is sound, as long as it actually will achieve some of what we wanted to achieve. And what we wanted to achieve really is to minimize censorship on the Ethereum network, because as we know, there are 3 different ways that censorship can happen on the Ethereum network today in terms of like inclusion level censorship. I'm not talking about attestation level censorship. We haven't seen that at all, and we doubt we'll see that because of the fact that doing attestation level censorship is basically hurting yourself for nothing. You're just basically forking off the chain by doing that. But inclusion level kind of censorship has been happening since the OFAC sanctions happened, right? That's like 2 years ago now. Not 2 years ago. It happened August 8th, 2022, I believe. Yes, it was before the merge. But then you have these 3 parties. You have validators, you have relays, and you have builders. So right now, builders are the most censoring bunch, where you have 62% of builders that are currently censoring, which I believe is 4 out of 5 of them, and there's 1 builder not censoring. There's 5 builders that make up the majority of the blocks. Relays is about half censoring, half non-censoring, and validators, there's 91% that are non-censoring, with 9% censoring here. So as you can see, the picture is much better for validators than it is for the other 2 groups. Relays are being handled as part of PBS or ePBS. That does not mean that the relays are going to be censorship resistant by default. PBS just enshrines the relays into the protocol, or ePBS. And builders, we've already kind of accepted as an ecosystem that builders are always going to be centralized. So in that world where we accepted that builders are always going to be centralized because of the centralizing forces of block building just to begin with, then we need to give powers back to the validator to ensure censorship resistance, which is exactly what inclusion lists aims to do. And that's why it's critical that we get it into the network, because censorship could possibly get worse over time, because there could be more things that get sanctioned. And the longer we let it kind of stew like this, and the longer we let it fester, it becomes a true scourge on the network. And that's why that part of the roadmap that addresses censorship is called the scourge, because it really is a scourge. And keep in mind, this does not just apply to Ethereum. This applies to pretty much any blockchain out there. It's just that we've seen it on Ethereum at large scale, because Ethereum has a robust kind of MAV boost network, which basically outsources block building to these centralized block producers and then passes it on to validators. But also, Ethereum is the only network that I know of that has smart contracts that have been sanctioned. I think that there's been a few Bitcoin addresses that have been sanctioned, but no actual smart contracts. So this applies to every network regardless. Like if, for example, Tornado Cash was to be deployed on another smart contract chain today, and then OFAC wants to sanction that, the same thing would happen, right? So Ethereum is tackling this head on with things like inclusion lists, but there are other ways of tackling this as well. There's lots of research going into this. But as I said, this is all part of this Scourge roadmap item. All right, last up, before I finish up today's episode, I put a tweet out that I think is worth talking about because I know a lot of you guys are probably in this position. So I put out this tweet and I said, you as a long-time crypto native just experienced a bear crab market where everything was PvP or player versus player for a while, so you naturally have fear or are scared when things are going up so rapidly. I want to expand on that first paragraph. So the reason why you have this fear is because for the last, I don't know, since maybe, I think it was since the beginning of 2022 and to maybe like mid 2023 at least, and maybe even later than that, maybe like towards the end of 2023, what ended up happening is that anything that would go up, like if BTC and ETH would go up, they get sold back down straight away, right? Any other kind of coin that you tried to bet on would just like not do anything. It would not perform at all. It would just be flat and crab. So, and then obviously it was very PvP where everyone knew the game. Everyone was kind of like, fighting each other that had been around for a while. You know, it was just crypto native on crypto native kind of like a gang wars going on, if you will, right? And now because we've been in this, I guess like probably since late Q3, Q4, and into Q1, we've been in this kind of up-only environment where it is a raging bull market now. We're in the midst of it right now. You have this fear. You're like, oh, are we going to sell down again? Am I going to get rugged again? Like, what's going to happen here? And that's totally natural, guys. Like, I had this fear as well in 2020 when DeFi Summit was first happening. I was just like, this is all happening so fast. Like, because we had just gone through 2018 and 2019 and the COVID dump. Like last bear market before this one, the one before was much worse than this one, guys. Like you got off easy with this bear market, let me tell you. But anyway, that's a good thing, by the way. It means the crypto's maturing. But regardless of that, I had that same feeling back then, and I was just like, oh my god, like this is actually happening. Holy shit, like the bull market's actually back. Because during the bear market, you keep telling yourself, you're like, oh, the bull market's going to come back. I know how this works. It works in cycles, and you believe it. But then there's always that doubt in your mind. You're like, what if it doesn't come back? What if it doesn't happen like that? What if I am making the wrong choice of putting my money here? You have that doubt, right? And I totally understand that. So when things do start going well, you still have that doubt because you've trained yourself into that. And you still have that fear because you've trained yourself into that. But, and this comes to my next paragraph, I said, new entrants do not have this fear. They only have hope, greed, and FOMO. They hear stories of people making it big on meme coins and want in on the action. So these new entrants, all these normies that we call them, all these noobs that are coming in, they didn't experience this bear market, guys, at all. Like if they're, by definition, if they're new entrants coming in, they don't experience that. So for them, all they're experiencing for the foreseeable future is going to be an up-only market, basically, right? And I'll get to why this is not going to not a good thing in the long run for these people. But this is why they keep plowing money in. This is why FOMO gets created. This is why more and more new people come in because they see their friend making money. They see their people online they follow making money. They see them shilling it. They see them talking about these meme coins. They see them talking about. And there's mainstream media talking about BTC and ETH going into all-time highs. So they start getting the greed and FOMO. And they don't have that overhang fear from the bear and crab market. They don't have that at all. Honestly, like zero of that because they didn't experience it. Whereas you have that. But what's good about this is that you can harness this. And this is what, this brings me to my final paragraph where I said, remove the fear from your mind, right? The fear will only paralyze you. Embrace the bull market to maximize your chances of success. So remove that fear. That fear is not going to do you any good. It's going to paralyze you. But at the same time, remove it, but remember it, right? So don't let it paralyze you, but keep it in mind because there is going to be another bear market, guys. I know everyone's talking about up only, super cycle, whatever you want to call it. There is going to be another bear market, 100%. Like I can guarantee you there's going to be another bear market. There is no way that there isn't. That is not how markets work. But you need to harness this fear after removing it from your mind to stop it from paralyzing you, but then like harness the fear, harness that kind of experience that you have to maximize your chances of success. Because I ended the tweet by saying this: you waited years for this. Don't fuck it up. Like, do not fuck it up. You waited years. You stacked when you should have stacked, right? You've got a good, healthy portfolio. You didn't over leverage. You didn't blow yourself up. You sat through it. You believed in the tech. You believed in what the asset you bought. Now the time has come, or will come soon enough, for you to start taking profits. And I spoke at length about this with Eric on the podcast that we did. You can go watch that if you haven't yet to get more of my takes on this. But now is the time, the time really probably was 6 months ago to start planning your exit or kind of, I guess, like coming to terms with when you're going to exit. But really, you need to keep that top of mind. Enjoy the bull market, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's up only until it isn't. It's a bull market until it isn't. You're never going to time the top, right? But if you kind of have your targets that you want to sell at, you DCA out, or maybe you have things you want to sell for, and you know exactly what you're kind of like selling for, and you know where you're taking profits. That's the way to go about it. But as I said, go watch that episode I did with Eric for more on that. But yeah, guys, like, this was something that I had to keep in mind in 2021 a lot. And I had other people mentoring me and guiding me on this. I didn't just come up with it on my own, like no one does. And that's why I'm trying to pass this on to you guys. I'm trying to impart this wisdom onto you guys because I've been through what you're going through right now. I know what it feels like, but you can't let that paralyze you, because if you let it paralyze you, you default to inaction, and then you miss selling again. And if you do not take profits this bull market, and then you have to wait for another bull market to come around, you are going to absolutely hate it. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be the worst feeling you ever felt. Like, it's shit. I did that in 2017, where essentially I didn't take any profits. And look, I didn't feel like totally shit about it, but the thing is that I was really in it for the tech in 2018, 2019. I made the whole thing, the crypto ecosystem my life. I made Ethereum my life, and I was enjoying it because of that. But at the same time, my portfolio was basically flat, guys, for a long time. And it went down a lot. Like, I peaked at a pretty high amount of money in 2017. I didn't take anything off the table, and it felt like shit, honestly. But what kept me going was I had a great kind of a group of people that I talked to a lot. Eric being one of those people, and they kept me grounded, right? They kept me grounded. They kept me on mission, and we all kind of helped each other with that. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to kind of help you guys with it, trying to keep the spirits high. I know your spirits are probably high right now because it's a bull market, right? I think I did my hard work of keeping your spirits high in the bear and crab market, but the bull market, you don't want your spirits getting that too high or so high that you start being blinded by the bull market and you don't take profits. Because I know a lot of you're really counting on crypto to help you substantially in your life, and why not? Why shouldn't you? That should be something that you're counting on. Like, not as a guarantee, but hey, it keeps you focused. You know what you want. And if what you want is a house or a deposit on a house or a way to pay off an existing mortgage, or maybe you want a new car, maybe you want to help your parents out, help your friends and family out, whatever it is, whatever you want, you're not going to get any of that if you don't sell. Now, I know I'm saying, me saying sell is maybe sacrilege because of how bullish I am on ETH and crypto generally, but you can be bullish on crypto and still take profits, because as we all know, it all works in pretty violent cycles, and you can take advantage of these cycles if you want to, if you know how to play the game. But that's like kind of my whole overall point there. But anyway, enough of me ranting about that. Hopefully that helps you guys as we move into the next phase of this bull market here, as BTC hit all-time high. ETH is almost there, basically heading to the 4,000s. But yeah, I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.